The humid air of Naval Air Station Oceana felt thick enough to cut with a knife as Captain Sarah Phoenix Martinez pulled her helmet bag from the back of her pickup truck. The Virginia morning sun was already beating down mercilessly, promising another scorching day on the base. She'd been flying F-22 Raptors for 8 years now, but today felt different. Today, she wasn't reporting to her usual squadron. The orders had come through 3 days ago, sealed and marked with classifications that made even seasoned pilots raise their eyebrows. Joint training exercise with Naval Special Warfare Group 2. Translation: she'd be working with Navy SEALs for the next 6 weeks. The brass hadn't given her much detail beyond that, just coordinates and a time to report. Sarah had earned her call sign Phoenix the hard way. During her second deployment, her F-22 had taken heavy damage from ground fire over hostile territory. Most pilots would have ejected, but Sarah managed to nurse the wounded aircraft back to base, landing on fumes with hydraulics failing and half her instruments dark. She'd risen from what should have been certain death, like the mythical bird from the ashes. Now, walking across the tarmac toward Building 437, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something bigger than a routine training exercise. The building looked ordinary enough from the outside, but she'd learned in her military career that the most ordinary-looking places often housed the most extraordinary operations. Commander Jake Bulldog Reeves was having the worst morning of his career, and that was saying something for a man who'd survived 3 tours in Afghanistan and more classified operations than he cared to count. The silver-haired SEAL officer sat behind his desk, glaring at the personnel file in front of him like it had personally offended his mother. An Air Force pilot, he muttered to himself for the dozenth time. They're sending me an Air Force pilot for Operation Nightfall? His aide, Petty Officer First Class Martinez, knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Sir, Captain Martinez has arrived. Reeves looked up, his weathered face creased with irritation. Send him in. Let's get this over with. Actually, sir, Martinez said carefully, Captain Martinez is a woman. The silence that followed could have been measured with a stopwatch. Reeves' jaw tightened visibly. In his 22 years with the SEALs, he'd worked with exactly 0 female pilots on direct action missions. Not because he was necessarily opposed to it, but because that's just how things had always been. His world was one of tradition, brotherhood, and unbreakable bonds forged in combat. The idea of disrupting that dynamic made his stomach churn. A woman, he repeated slowly. Yes, sir. Captain Sarah Martinez, call sign Phoenix. Reeves closed the file with more force than necessary. Send her in. Sarah knocked twice and entered the office. She'd expected the standard military decorations and awards that adorned most senior officers' walls, but Commander Reeves' office was something else entirely. Bronze stars, silver stars, a Navy Cross, and photographs showing him with various military units in locations that probably didn't appear on any official maps. Captain Martinez reporting as ordered, sir, she said, snapping to attention and delivering a crisp salute. Reeves returned the salute but remained seated, studying her with the kind of intensity that had probably made enemy combatants reconsider their life choices. Sarah was used to being scrutinized. At 5'6" with auburn hair and green eyes, she didn't look like the stereotypical fighter pilot, and she'd spent years proving that appearances could be deceiving. Sit, Reeves said finally. Sarah took the chair across from his desk, maintaining perfect posture despite the obvious tension in the room. Captain Martinez, Reeves began, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question, I'm going to be direct with you. This operation requires precision, split-second timing, and absolute trust between team members. My men have trained together for months. They know each other's thoughts before they think them. You're an unknown variable in an equation that doesn't have room for variables. Sarah had faced this speech before, or variations of it, from male officers who questioned whether a woman belonged in a cockpit. She'd learned that the best response was usually to let them finish before making her case. With respect, sir, she replied, her voice steady, I wouldn't be here if the brass didn't think I could handle it. My record speaks for itself. Reeves picked up her file and flipped it open, though Sarah suspected he'd already memorized every page. 230 combat hours in F-22s. Distinguished Flying Cross. 3 air-to-air kills. Impressive stats, Captain. But this isn't about flying in formation or engaging enemy aircraft from 30,000 feet. This is about close air support in urban environments with friendly forces on the ground. One mistake, 1 second of hesitation, and my men die. The weight of his words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Sarah understood what he wasn't saying directly. He didn't trust her, and, more than that, he didn't want her here. She'd encountered resistance before, but this felt different. This wasn't just about gender politics or military tradition. This was about life and death. Sir, she said, choosing her words carefully, I've provided close air support in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I've had troops in contact situations where the difference between friendly and enemy positions was measured in meters, not kilometers. I understand what's at stake. Reeves studied her for a long moment, then closed the file. Maybe you do. But understanding and proving it are two different things. You'll be working with SEAL Team 7. They're good men, the best I've got, but they're not going to make this easy for you. They've been preparing for this operation without any air support, and, suddenly, I'm telling them they've got a babysitter in the sky. I prefer to think of it as guardian angel, Sarah replied, allowing just the hint of a smile to cross her lips. The comment seemed to catch Reeves off guard. He'd expected defensiveness or anger, not humor. For just a moment, his expression softened slightly. We'll see about that, he said. Your briefing is at 0800 tomorrow. Until then, I suggest you familiarize yourself with the operational parameters. And, Captain? Yes, sir? My men don't know you're coming yet. I thought I should tell them personally. Try not to take their initial reaction personally. Sarah stood and saluted. Understood, sir. Will there be anything else? Just one thing. In my experience, the best way to earn respect around here is to prove you belong. Words won't do it. Neither will your file or your decorations. My men only respect what they can see and trust what they can verify. I hope you're ready for that. As Sarah left the building, she found herself thinking about the commander's words. She'd spent her entire military career proving herself, first at the Air Force Academy, then in pilot training, and, finally, in combat. She'd thought those days were behind her, but, apparently, every new assignment meant starting over. The base was bustling with activity as she made her way to the temporary quarters she'd been assigned. Sailors and Marines moved with purpose, preparing for various training exercises and operations. She noticed a group of men in desert camouflage near the far end of the tarmac, moving with the kind of fluid precision that marked them as Special Operations Forces. Her phone buzzed with a text from her younger brother Miguel, a Marine stationed at Camp Pendleton. How's the new assignment going? Still making boys cry? Sarah smiled despite her frustration. Miguel had always been her biggest supporter, even when their parents had worried about her chosen career path. Their father, a retired Army sergeant, had eventually come around, but it had taken seeing her graduate from pilot training to convince him she was serious about military service. That evening, Sarah found herself in the base gym, working through her frustrations on a heavy bag. Physical exercise had always been her way of processing stress, and today had provided plenty of both. She was 3 rounds into her workout when she became aware of someone watching her. A tall man in PT gear leaned against the wall nearby, arms crossed, studying her technique. He had the weathered look of someone who'd spent considerable time in harsh environments, with scars visible on his arms that suggested his military service hadn't been entirely behind a desk. You box? He asked as she paused between combinations. Since I was 12, Sarah replied, not stopping her workout. My dad thought it would teach me discipline. Did it work? Sarah threw a particularly hard right cross that made the heavy bag shudder. You'd have to ask him. The man chuckled. I'm Master Chief Ramirez. I run PT for the SEAL teams here. Sarah stopped and turned to face him. Captain Martinez. I'm guessing word travels fast around here. Faster than you might think. The guys are pretty curious about their new air support. Curious or concerned? Ramirez considered the question. Both, probably. These men have been through hell together. They've saved each other's lives more times than they can count. Trust doesn't come easy in this business. Sarah unwrapped her hands, noting the calluses and small scars that marked years of training and combat. I understand that. I'm not asking for their friendship. I just need them to trust that I can do my job. That's a good start, Ramirez said. But, around here, those two things tend to go hand in hand. You might find that earning one gets you the other. As Sarah headed back to her quarters that night, she reflected on the day's events. Commander Reeves had made his position clear, and it wasn't encouraging. She'd faced skeptical male colleagues before, but something about this assignment felt different. The stakes seemed higher, the resistance more entrenched. Her temporary room in the bachelor officer's quarters was Spartan but functional. As she unpacked her gear, she came across a photograph that always traveled with her, herself and her flight school classmates on graduation day. Of the 24 pilots in the picture, she was one of only 3 women. 2 years later, she was the only one still flying fighters. She'd learned early in her career that being exceptional wasn't enough. She had to be better than exceptional, had to prove herself repeatedly in situations where her male colleagues were given the benefit of the doubt. It was exhausting, but it had also made her one of the finest pilots in the Air Force. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new faces to win over, new obstacles to overcome. As she prepared for bed, Sarah allowed herself a moment of doubt. What if Commander Reeves was right? What if she was an unknown variable in an equation that couldn't tolerate variables? She pushed the thought aside. Self-doubt was a luxury she couldn't afford, especially not the night before meeting the men she'd be supporting in combat. Whatever SEAL Team 7 threw at her, she'd be ready. She had to be. The last thing she did before turning out the lights was check her flight gear one more time. Her helmet sat on the desk, the Phoenix emblem painted on the side seeming to glow in the dim light. Tomorrow, she'd find out if her reputation as a pilot who could rise from any challenge would be enough to earn her place among America's most elite warriors. Outside her window, the sounds of the base settling down for the night provided a familiar backdrop. Somewhere out there, the men of SEAL Team 7 were probably discussing their mysterious new air support. She wondered what they were saying, what assumptions they were making. Time would tell if Captain Sarah Phoenix Martinez could prove that sometimes the best guardian angels come from the most unexpected places. The briefing room at 0800 hours felt like stepping into a lion's den. 8 men in desert camouflage sat around a rectangular table, their conversation dying the moment Sarah entered. She'd seen that look before, the mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and barely concealed irritation that greeted any woman entering what they considered their exclusive domain. "Gentlemen," Commander Reeves announced from the head of the table, "meet Captain Martinez. She'll be providing close air support for Operation Nightfall." The silence that followed could have been carved with a knife. Sarah took the empty chair at the far end of the table, acutely aware of 8 pairs of eyes studying her every move. She'd faced hostile enemy fighters with less tension than what filled this room. Lieutenant Commander Alex Viper Harrison, the team leader, spoke first. He was the kind of man who commanded attention without trying, broad shoulders, intelligent eyes, and the confidence that came from successfully completing missions that officially never happened. "Captain Martinez," he said, his voice professionally neutral but with an edge that suggested he wasn't any happier about this development than Commander Reeves. "We've been training for this operation for 3 months without air support. Our mission parameters don't typically include coordination with fixed-wing aircraft." Sarah had prepared for this moment during the sleepless hours of the previous night. "Lieutenant Commander, I understand the change in operational structure creates additional complexity. However, intelligence suggests the target area has been reinforced with anti-aircraft capabilities since your initial planning phase. My presence isn't meant to complicate your mission, it's meant to ensure you all come home." Petty Officer 2nd Class Danny Tank Rodriguez, a massive man whose nickname seemed almost understated, leaned back in his chair. "No disrespect, Captain, but we've been getting ourselves out of bad situations long before the Air Force decided we needed a babysitter." "Tank," Lieutenant Commander Harrison warned quietly. Sarah kept her expression neutral. Getting angry would only prove their point about women being too emotional for combat operations. Petty Officer Rodriguez, I've been providing close air support for Special Operations Forces for 6 years. I've never lost a friendly, and I've never failed to engage a target when called upon. I'm not here to babysit anyone. I'm here to provide capabilities you don't have. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Ghost Thompson, whose pale blue eyes seemed to see everything while revealing nothing, studied Sarah with the intensity of a predator evaluating prey. What aircraft are you flying, Captain? F-22 Raptor. The room's energy shifted slightly. Even among Special Operations Forces, the F-22 commanded respect. It was the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world, capable of engaging multiple targets simultaneously while remaining virtually invisible to enemy radar. Stealth fighter, muttered Petty Officer First Class Rico Sparks Delgado, the team's communications specialist. Might actually be useful if things go sideways. Commander Reeves activated the large display screen at the front of the room, showing satellite imagery of a compound in what appeared to be a Middle Eastern urban environment. Operation Nightfall is a direct action mission targeting Hassan al-Zarqawi, a high-value individual responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces. Intelligence indicates he's fortified himself in this compound with approximately 20 fighters and newly acquired surface-to-air missile systems. Sarah studied the imagery with the eye of someone who'd spent years analyzing targets from the air. The compound was surrounded by narrow streets and civilian buildings, making precision strikes extremely challenging. Too much firepower and innocent civilians would die. Too little and the SEALs could find themselves overwhelmed. The mission window was narrow, Reeves continued. Zarqawi is expected to be at this location for exactly 6 hours, from 2300 hours to 0500 hours tomorrow night. After that, intelligence suggests he'll disappear for several months. Lieutenant Commander Harrison leaned forward. Rules of engagement? Capture if possible, eliminate if necessary. Civilian casualties are to be avoided at all costs. This operation cannot become an international incident. Petty Officer Second Class James Doc Williams, the team medic, raised his hand. What's our extraction timeline? Wheels up in 12 hours. Flight time to target is 4 hours. You'll have a 6-hour window to complete the mission and reach the extraction point. Sarah found herself calculating fuel loads, flight times, and weapons configurations in her head. The F-22 had the range to provide support for the entire operation, but she'd need to be smart about ammunition conservation and positioning. Captain Martinez, Reeves said, you'll launch 30 minutes after the SEAL team inserts. Your call sign for this operation will be Angel Flight. Your primary mission is overwatch and target elimination if requested by ground forces. Understood, sir. What weapons loadout are we looking at? Standard air-to-ground configuration. 8 small-diameter bombs, 2 AIM-120 missiles for air-to-air defense, and full-gun ammunition. After the briefing ended, the SEALs filed out of the room, their conversations resuming in hushed tones the moment they were clear of the officers. Sarah remained behind, studying the target imagery and making notes about potential approach vectors and engagement angles. Having second thoughts? Commander Reeves asked as he gathered his materials. No, sir. Just working through contingencies. Reeves paused at the door. Captain, I want to be clear about something. My concerns about your participation in this operation aren't personal. They're professional. These men have trained together for months. They know each other's capabilities and limitations. Introducing a new element at this stage creates risk. Sarah looked up from her notes. Sir, with respect, every combat mission involves unknown variables. Weather, enemy actions, equipment failures, you can't plan for everything. What you can do is ensure every team member is capable of adapting when things go wrong. And, you believe you can adapt? I know I can. The question is whether your men can adapt to having air support they weren't expecting. That afternoon, Sarah found herself in the base flight simulator, running through various scenarios that might arise during the operation. The simulator couldn't perfectly replicate the F-22's capabilities, But it allowed her to practice the precision flying that would be required for close air support in an urban environment. She was deep into a particularly challenging scenario when someone knocked on the simulator door. Chief Petty Officer Thompson stood outside, still wearing the unreadable expression that seemed to be his default setting. "Mind if I watch?" he asked. Sarah paused the simulation. "Sure. Just don't expect me to crash for your entertainment." Thompson actually smiled at that, the first human expression she'd seen from him. "I'd be disappointed if you did." As Sarah resumed the simulation, Thompson observed quietly. The scenario involved providing close air support for troops in contact with enemy forces in an urban environment remarkably similar to their actual target. Sarah's handling of the virtual F-22 was smooth and precise, her responses to changing tactical situations quick and decisive. "You've done this before," Thompson observed after she successfully completed a particularly difficult engagement sequence. "Ramadi, 2019, Sarah replied, setting up another scenario. Similar situation. SEALs were pinned down by sniper fire from multiple buildings. I put 2 precision strikes through windows from 15,000 feet. How close were the friendlies? 50 meters from the nearest impact." Thompson whistled softly. "At 50 meters, even a small error could result in friendly casualties. That's cutting it pretty fine." "Sometimes fine is all you have," Sarah said, launching into another scenario. The choice was risk a precision strike or watch good men die. They worked through several more scenarios, with Thompson occasionally offering insights about how SEAL teams typically operated in urban environments. Despite his taciturn nature, Sarah found him to be an excellent source of tactical knowledge. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said as she powered down the simulator. "Shoot. Why are you here?" "Your teammates made their opinions pretty clear this morning." Thompson was quiet for a long moment. "You know what the hardest part of this job is, Captain? Enlighten me." "It's not the physical demands or the danger. It's trusting your life to people you've never worked with before. Every new assignment, every new team member, every new support element, it all represents potential failure points." Sarah nodded. She understood that sentiment perfectly. "But," Thompson continued, "I've been doing this for 12 years. I've learned to read people pretty quickly. This morning, when Tank was giving you grief about being a babysitter, you could have gotten defensive or tried to prove how tough you are. Instead, you focused on the mission and your capabilities. Is that good or bad? It's what professionals do. Amateurs get emotional. Professionals stay focused on the job." That evening, Sarah joined several of the SEAL team members at the base gym. She'd learned that physical training was often where military personnel really got to know each other, away from the formal structure of briefings and mission planning. Petty Officer Rodriguez was bench pressing an amount of weight that looked like it should be illegal, while Petty Officer Delgado spotted him. Sarah took a place at the pull-up bar and began her evening routine. "How many you usually do?" Rodriguez asked between sets. "Depends on the day. Usually around 25. Let's see 'em." Sarah began her pull-ups, maintaining perfect form as she worked through the set. Military personnel appreciated physical competence almost as much as professional competence, and she'd learned that demonstrating both was often the key to acceptance. 26, Delgado counted as she completed her set. "Not bad for Air Force." "Thanks," Sarah replied, adding just enough dry humor to her voice to make it clear she wasn't taking the bait. "Not bad for a babysitter, either." Rodriguez actually laughed at that. "Okay, I probably deserve that one." As the evening progressed, Sarah found herself gradually drawn into the team's conversations. They talked shop mostly, previous missions, training experiences, and the eternal military pastime of complaining about officers and politicians. She contributed when appropriate but mostly listened, learning about the personalities and dynamics that would be crucial during the coming mission. Lieutenant Commander Harrison appeared near the end of their workout, clearly having come looking for his team. He found them clustered around the bench press, with Sarah having just completed a set that earned grudging respect from the group. "How much?" he asked Rodriguez. 140. Not bad for her size. Harrison studied Sarah with new interest. Physical strength wasn't everything in special operations, but it was an important indicator of mental toughness and dedication to training. "Captain," he said, "can I speak with you privately?" They walked to a quiet corner of the gym where their conversation wouldn't be overheard. "My men seem to be warming up to you," Harrison observed. "They're good people. Suspicious, but good people. They have reason to be suspicious. We've lost teammates before because support elements failed to deliver when needed." Sarah understood the subtext. This wasn't just about military effectiveness, it was about brotherhood and the bonds forged in combat. "Lieutenant Commander, I can't promise that everything will go perfectly tomorrow night. What I can promise is that I'll do everything in my power to bring your men home safely." Harrison studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "That's all anyone can ask for." As Sarah headed back to her quarters that night, she reflected on the day's progress. The team was beginning to accept her, slowly and cautiously, but it was happening. More importantly, she was beginning to understand them, their concerns, their capabilities, and the unspoken bonds that held them together. Tomorrow night, all of their training and preparation would be put to the test in a hostile environment where mistakes could be measured in lives lost. The weight of that responsibility settled over her shoulders like a familiar burden. She spent the last hour before sleep reviewing intelligence reports and mission parameters one more time. Somewhere in the Middle East, Hassan al-Zarqawi was probably making his own preparations, unaware that 8 American warriors and 1 guardian angel were coming for him. The operation that would define Sarah's career and possibly her life was less than 24 hours away. The pre-dawn darkness at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar felt heavy with anticipation as Sarah completed her pre-flight inspection of the F-22 Raptor. Her hands moved with practiced precision over each control surface, checking every system that would keep her alive and effective during the next 8 hours. The aircraft sat in its hardened shelter like a sleeping predator, its angular surfaces designed to slip through enemy radar undetected. "Angel Flight, this is Tower. You're cleared for engine start." Sarah settled into the cockpit with the familiarity of someone who'd spent thousands of hours in similar seats. The F-22's advanced systems came online with electronic precision, each display confirming that America's most sophisticated fighter was ready for war. 300 miles ahead of her, SEAL Team 7 was already on the ground, having infiltrated the target area under cover of darkness. Their insertion had gone according to plan, but Sarah knew that no plan survived first contact with the enemy unchanged. "Angel Flight, Viper Actual," Lieutenant Commander Harrison's voice crackled through her encrypted communications system. "Package is in position. Beginning approach to target. Copy, Viper Actual. Angel Flight is airborne and en route. ETA to station 20 minutes. Sarah pushed the throttles forward, feeling the twin Pratt & Whitney engines respond with a surge of power that pressed her back into her seat. The F-22 leaped skyward like it was eager for the fight ahead. Below her, the Persian Gulf stretched out in moonlit darkness, its surface occasionally broken by the lights of oil platforms and cargo ships. Sarah climbed to 30,000 feet, where the Raptor would be invisible to ground-based radars while maintaining the ability to strike targets anywhere within a 100-mile radius. "Angel Flight, Viper Actual. We have eyes on target. Compound appears as briefed. Multiple sentries, light vehicles in courtyard. Thermal imaging shows approximately 15 to 20 individuals inside main building." Sarah activated her targeting systems, the F-22's sophisticated sensors reaching out across the night to paint an electronic picture of the battlefield. The compound appeared on her displays exactly as the intelligence photographs had shown, but now it was real, with real people who would live or die based on the decisions made in the next few hours. "Viper Actual, Angel Flight. I have good visual on compound. Tracking multiple heat signatures. Standing by for tasking." The SEAL team moved like ghosts through the narrow streets surrounding the target. Sarah watched their progress on her thermal sensors, 8 bright spots against the cooler background, approaching the compound with the patience of hunters who knew that hurrying usually got people killed. "Angel Flight, Ghost. We have a problem." Chief Petty Officer Thompson's voice carried the tension of someone who'd spotted something that shouldn't be there. Go ahead, Ghost. 3 vehicles approaching from the south. Military pattern, looks like a patrol coming back early. They'll be at the compound in 5 minutes. Sarah immediately shifted her sensors toward the approaching vehicles. 3 pickup trucks, each carrying what appeared to be 4 to 5 armed men. Not part of the original intelligence assessment, but exactly the kind of variable that made combat operations unpredictable. Viper actual, Angel flight. I see the vehicles. Recommend you abort and try again tomorrow night. Negative, Angel flight. Intelligence says this is our only window. Zarqawi leaves in the morning and disappears for months. We're proceeding. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Harrison was making the kind of decision that separated good leaders from great ones, but it was also the kind of decision that could get everyone killed. Copy, Viper actual. Angel flight standing by. The SEAL team reached the compound's outer wall just as the first pickup truck turned onto the street leading to the main gate. Sarah watched both groups converge on the target through her sensors, calculating distances, timing, and the 100 variables that would determine whether this mission succeeded or became a disaster. Angel flight, Viper actual. We're going in. If those vehicles enter the compound before we clear it, we're going to need immediate close air support. Roger, Viper actual. Weapons hot, standing by. Sarah armed her weapons systems, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility that came with having the power to end lives at the press of a button. 8 small-diameter bombs hung beneath her aircraft, each one capable of destroying a building or eliminating a vehicle with surgical precision. The SEAL team breached the compound's outer wall with practiced efficiency. Sarah watched them flow over the barrier like water, splitting into 2-man teams that covered each other's movement toward the main building. Their years of training were evident in every step, every hand signal, every tactical decision. The first pickup truck was now only 2 blocks away. Contact front. The sharp crack of rifle fire echoed through Sarah's headset as the SEALs encountered the compound sentries. She watched muzzle flashes bloom like deadly flowers in her thermal display as the team engaged multiple targets simultaneously. Angel flight, Sparks. We have multiple enemy fighters exiting the main building. Count 8, heavily armed, moving to defensive positions. Sarah banked the F-22 into a shallow turn, positioning herself for optimal weapons delivery while maintaining altitude. Below her, the battle was developing exactly as she'd feared it would. The SEALs were outnumbered and about to be trapped between the compound's defenders and the approaching patrol. Angel flight, tank. Need immediate suppression on the main building's 2nd floor. We've got a machine gun position that's got us pinned. Sarah's targeting system locked onto the building, her weapons computer calculating the precise angle and timing needed to eliminate the threat without endangering the friendlies below. The small-diameter bombs were designed for exactly this kind of precision work, but the margin for error was measured in feet, not yards. Viper actual, confirm you want ordnance on the main building. Zarqawi may be inside. Negative on main building. We need him alive if possible. Can you engage the machine gun position without bringing down the structure? Sarah studied her targeting display, calculating angles and blast effects. A direct hit on the machine gun position would eliminate the threat, but the building's construction made it impossible to guarantee structural integrity. Angel flight, Viper actual. Those trucks are 60 seconds out. I need that machine gun silenced now. Time slowed to a crawl as Sarah made the kind of decision that would either save the SEAL team or haunt her forever. She selected her smallest munition and adjusted the targeting solution for minimum blast effect. Viper actual, Angel flight. Bomb away. Danger close, take cover. The small-diameter bomb dropped away from the F-22 like a falling star, its guidance system steering it toward the precise window where muzzle flashes had revealed the enemy machine gun position. Sarah counted the seconds until impact, watching the SEAL team take cover behind whatever protection they could find. The explosion lit up the night sky, a brilliant flash followed by the rumble of collapsing masonry. When the smoke cleared, the machine gun position was gone, along with a substantial portion of the building's 2nd floor. Good hit, good hit. Machine gun is down. Thompson's voice carried the relief of someone who'd just had a death sentence lifted. But the celebration was short-lived. The first pickup truck had reached the compound's main gate, and armed men were already dismounting. Angel Flight, Ghost. We've got approximately 15 new hostiles entering the compound. Request immediate close air support on vehicles. Sarah was already adjusting her targeting solution before Thompson finished speaking. The pickup trucks were clustered near the gate, their occupants moving toward the main building where the SEALs were conducting their search for Zarqawi. Viper Actual, Angel Flight. I can eliminate the vehicles, but blast radius will extend into the compound. Recommend you pull back to minimum safe distance. Negative, Angel Flight. We've located Zarqawi. He's wounded but alive. We need 3 more minutes to extract him. 3 minutes might as well have been 3 hours. The reinforcements were already spreading out through the compound, using tactical movement that suggested they were more than just local fighters. These were trained soldiers, and they were systematically surrounding the SEAL team's position. Angel Flight, document. We've got wounded. Tank took shrapnel from the building collapse. He's mobile but bleeding. Sarah felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. Every decision from this point forward would have consequences measured in American lives. She could eliminate the vehicles and risk injuring the SEALs with blast effects, or she could wait and watch them get overwhelmed by superior numbers. Viper Actual, Angel Flight. I'm going to engage the vehicles with gun runs. Lower blast effect, but I'll need multiple passes. Copy, Angel Flight. We'll mark our position with infrared strobes. Sarah pushed the F-22 into a steep dive, bringing the aircraft down to 8,000 feet where her 20mm cannon would be most effective. The Raptor's gun system was designed for air-to-air combat, but it would work against lightly armored vehicles if she could get the angle right. The infrared strobes appeared on her targeting display like friendly beacons, marking the SEAL team's position relative to the enemy vehicles. Sarah lined up her first gun run, the F-22's computer calculating the precise moment to fire. Angel Flight in hot. The cannon fired in controlled bursts, sending streams of 20mm rounds into the first pickup truck. The vehicle disappeared in a ball of flame as its fuel tank ignited, the explosion illuminating the compound in flickering orange light. Sarah pulled up from the gun run and immediately banked for a second pass. The remaining vehicles were already moving, their drivers having learned that staying stationary was a death sentence. Angel Flight, Sparks. Beautiful shooting. One vehicle destroyed, but the other 2 are dispersing. Infantry is taking cover. The second gun run was more challenging. The remaining vehicles had separated and taken cover behind buildings, while their passengers had dismounted and found defensive positions. Sarah's thermal sensors showed enemy fighters scattered throughout the compound, many of them dangerously close to the SEAL team's position. Angel Flight, Viper Actual. We have Zarqawi secured and ready for extraction. Can you suppress enemy infantry to cover our movement to the extraction point? Sarah studied her targeting display, looking for opportunities to engage enemy positions without endangering the SEALs. The compound had become a complex 3-dimensional battlefield where friend and foe were separated by mere meters. Viper Actual, Angel Flight. Infantry positions are too close to friendly forces for precision bombing. I can provide gun runs on specific targets if you can mark them. Copy, Angel Flight. Ghost is painting targets with laser designator. Small red dots began appearing on Sarah's display as Thompson used his laser targeting system to identify enemy positions. Each dot represented a life or death decision, a precise calculation of angle, timing, and acceptable risk. The third gun run targeted a group of fighters who'd taken position behind a low wall. Sarah's cannon fire walked across their position like deadly rain, the 20mm rounds chewing through concrete and flesh with equal efficiency. Good hits, Angel Flight. Enemy suppressed. We're moving to extraction point. Sarah climbed back to altitude, watching the SEAL team's movement through her sensors. They moved in tactical formation, carrying their wounded teammate and their high-value prisoner through streets that could hide enemy fighters behind every corner. Angel Flight, Viper Actual. We're taking fire from multiple positions. Need covering fire on buildings to our east. The gun runs came faster now, Sarah diving and climbing in a deadly rhythm that kept enemy fighters pinned down while the SEAL team moved toward safety. Her ammunition counter showed less than 200 rounds remaining, but there were still enemy fighters between the SEALs and their extraction point. Angel Flight, this is Lifeguard. The voice of the extraction helicopter pilot cut through the tactical chatter. I'm taking fire from the landing zone. Multiple shooters in buildings overlooking the LZ. Sarah's heart sank. The extraction helicopter was the SEAL team's only way home, but enemy fighters had positioned themselves to deny the landing zone. Without air support, the helicopter couldn't land, and, without the helicopter, the SEALs were trapped. Lifeguard, Angel Flight. I see the shooters. Stand by for suppression. This would be her most challenging shot of the night. The enemy positions were in multi-story buildings surrounding the landing zone, requiring precision that pushed both her skills and her aircraft's capabilities to the limit. Sarah selected her final bomb and programmed it for airburst detonation above the buildings. The blast wouldn't destroy the structures, but it would eliminate any fighters on the rooftops and upper floors. All stations, this is Angel Flight. Danger close airburst in 30 seconds. Take cover. The bomb detonated like a miniature sun, its blast wave shattering windows and sending debris raining down on the surrounding area. When the smoke cleared, the rooftop positions were silent. Lifeguard is clear to land, Sarah announced, watching the helicopter settle onto the landing zone like a mechanical angel of mercy. Angel Flight, Viper Actual. Package is secure, wounded is stable. We're loading now. Sarah provided overwatch as the SEAL team boarded the helicopter, her sensors sweeping the surrounding area for any remaining threats. Enemy fighters were moving toward the landing zone, but they would arrive seconds too late. Angel Flight, Viper Actual. Package is airborne. Thanks for the save. As the extraction helicopter disappeared into the darkness, carrying the SEAL team and their prisoner to safety, Sarah felt the exhaustion that always followed combat operations. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart was racing with the adrenaline that would take hours to subside. Angel Flight, this is Overwatch. Outstanding work tonight. Return to base. The flight back to Al Udeid seemed to take forever. Sarah replayed every decision, every shot, every moment when American lives had hung in the balance. She'd expended nearly all her ammunition and pushed her aircraft to its limits, but she'd accomplished the mission that mattered most, bringing everyone home alive. The debriefing room at Naval Air Station Oceana felt different when Sarah entered it 48 hours after Operation Nightfall. The same 8 SEALs sat around the familiar table, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Gone was the skeptical tension that had greeted her introduction. In its place was something that looked remarkably like respect. Commander Reeves sat at the head of the table, a thick folder of mission reports and intelligence assessments spread before him. His weathered face showed none of the resistance that had marked their first meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "Operation Nightfall was successful beyond our most optimistic projections. Hassan al-Zarqawi is in custody and providing valuable intelligence about upcoming attacks. More importantly, every member of the team returned home safely despite facing nearly double the enemy resistance we'd anticipated." Lieutenant Commander Harrison leaned forward in his chair. "Sir, I need to state for the record that Captain Martinez's performance during this operation was exceptional. Without her close air support, we would have faced significant casualties or mission failure." Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. She'd received praise before, but, coming from Harrison, it carried special weight. These men didn't offer compliments lightly or simply to be polite. The after-action reports make for interesting reading, Reeves continued, opening his folder. 8 precision bombing runs, 12 gun runs, and 17 enemy fighters eliminated with 0 friendly casualties and minimal collateral damage. "Captain, that's some of the finest close air support work I've seen documented." Chief Petty Officer Thompson, who'd barely spoken during Sarah's first week at the base, cleared his throat. "Sir, if I may add something to the record." "Go ahead, Chief." "When we were pinned down by that machine gun position, Captain Martinez made a precision strike that eliminated the threat without bringing down the building. The bomb hit within 3 feet of our position. I've never seen anything that precise from a fixed-wing aircraft." Petty Officer Rodriguez, who'd called her a babysitter just days before, nodded emphatically. "That gun run she made when we were extracting saved our lives. She put cannon fire within 20 meters of our position and never came close to hitting us." Sarah found herself thinking about the split-second decisions that had defined the mission. Every choice had carried the potential for disaster, but somehow everything had worked out. Maybe it was skill, maybe it was luck, or maybe it was something in between. "There's something else," Commander Reeves said, his tone becoming more formal. "The intelligence gathered from Zarqawi has revealed a planned attack on American naval vessels in the Persian Gulf. Because of this operation, we've been able to prevent what could have been a significant loss of life and strategic assets." The weight of that revelation settled over the room. They'd known the mission was important, but the full consequences were only now becoming clear. "Captain Martinez," Reeves continued, "I owe you an apology. My initial assessment of your participation in this operation was based on preconceptions rather than professional evaluation. Your performance has demonstrated that gender has no bearing on combat effectiveness when dealing with properly trained and dedicated personnel." Sarah had waited 8 years to hear words like those from a senior officer. "Thank you, sir. Though I'd prefer to be judged on my actions rather than my gender, either way." "Fair enough. Which brings me to our next topic." Reeves pulled out another folder, this one marked with security classifications that made Sarah's eyebrows rise. "The success of Operation Nightfall has generated interest at levels well above my pay grade. There's talk of formalizing the integration of F-22 support with special operations teams." Lieutenant Commander Harrison sat up straighter. "Sir, are you saying this might become a permanent arrangement?" "I'm saying the Pentagon is very interested in replicating what happened 3 nights ago." "Captain Martinez, how would you feel about extending your assignment here?" Sarah felt her heart rate increase. She'd expected to return to her regular squadron after this temporary assignment. The possibility of working permanently with Special Operations Forces was something she'd never considered. "Sir, I'd need to know more about the scope and duration of such an assignment." 6 months initially, with potential for extension. You'd be working with various SEAL teams, providing close air support for high-priority operations. It would mean more missions like Operation Nightfall, high risk, high reward, and absolutely critical to national security. The room fell silent as Sarah considered the offer. It would mean leaving behind the routine of regular squadron life for the uncertainty and danger of special operations work. It would also mean working with men like these on a regular basis, men who'd proven they could trust her with their lives. "I'd like some time to consider it, sir." "Of course. Take all the time you need." After the formal debriefing ended, Sarah found herself walking across the base with several members of the SEAL team. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, but the heat felt less oppressive than it had during her first week at Oceana. "So," said Petty Officer Delgado, "what do you think about Reeves' offer?" "Honestly? I'm not sure. This kind of work is what I joined the Air Force to do, but it's also the most dangerous assignment I've ever been offered." Chief Thompson walked quietly beside her for several steps before speaking. "Can I tell you something, Captain?" "Sure. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've worked with a lot of air support, Marine Harriers, Army Apaches, Navy Super Hornets, Air Force A-10s. I've never seen anyone fly like you did 3 nights ago." Sarah felt a flush of pride at the compliment, but Thompson wasn't finished. "More than that, though, you think like we do. When things went bad, you didn't panic or ask for permission. You saw what needed to be done and you did it. That's not something you can teach someone." "Ghost is right," Rodriguez added. "Most pilots, they're good at following orders and hitting predetermined targets. But when the plan falls apart and everything's going wrong, they freeze up. You adapted. As they reached the base gym, Lieutenant Commander Harrison stopped walking.
"Captain, can I speak with you privately for a moment?"
The others continued toward the gym while Sarah and Harrison found a quiet spot near the tarmac where they could talk without being overheard.
"I wanted to thank you personally," Harrison said.
"Not just for the mission support, but for how you handled my team. I know they weren't exactly welcoming when you arrived. They had every right to be suspicious.
I was an unknown quantity."
"Maybe, but you could have demanded their respect or complained to Reeves about their attitude. Instead, you earned their trust by proving yourself.
That says something about your character."
Sarah watched an F-18 taxi past them toward the runway, its engines creating a familiar roar that had been the soundtrack to her military career.
"Lieutenant Commander, can I ask you something?"
"Alex."
"And, yes. If I take this assignment, will your men really accept me as part of the team? Or will I always be the outsider who has to prove herself over and over?"
Harrison considered the question carefully.
"I won't lie to you.
Special operations is still a male-dominated field, and there will always be people who question whether women belong in combat roles.
But these men have seen what you can do under pressure.
They've trusted you with their lives and you delivered.
In our world, that's the only credential that matters." That evening, Sarah found herself back in her temporary quarters, staring at her phone.
She'd been meaning to call her brother Miguel since returning from the mission, but she hadn't been sure what to tell him.
Finally, she dialed his number. "Sarah. How's the new assignment going? Still making boys cry?" Despite everything that had happened, Sarah smiled. Miguel's irreverent humor had always been able to lift her spirits. "Actually, I think I might have found my place in this man's military." "That good, huh? What happened?"
Sarah gave him the sanitized version of Operation Nightfall, leaving out the classified details but conveying the essence of what had transpired.
"Wait," Miguel said when she finished. "You're telling me you went from babysitter to guardian angel in one mission?" "Something like that." "And now they want you to stay?" 6 months, maybe longer." Miguel was quiet for a moment.
As a Marine infantryman, he understood the significance of what she was describing.
"Sarah, this is what you've always wanted, isn't it? To be where the action is, making a real difference?" "Yeah, but it's also dangerous. More dangerous than anything I've done before." "Since when has danger stopped you? Remember when you were 8 and you climbed that oak tree behind Dad's house? You got stuck 30 feet up and refused to let the fire department get you down because you wanted to prove you could do it yourself?" Sarah laughed despite her anxiety. "That was different." "Was it? You've never backed down from a challenge in your life. Don't start now." After ending the call with Miguel, Sarah walked to her window and looked out at the base. Night shift personnel moved with quiet efficiency, preparing aircraft and equipment for missions she'd never hear about. This was the world she'd chosen, the life she'd built for herself through years of training and sacrifice. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Captain Martinez, this is Chief Thompson. The team is getting together at the base club tomorrow night to celebrate Tank's birthday. You should come. No pressure, but you're part of the team now whether you take the assignment or not." Sarah stared at the message for several minutes. It was a simple invitation, but it represented something much more significant. Acceptance. Belonging. The thing she'd been seeking her entire military career. She typed back, "I'll be there. Thanks for inviting me." The next morning, Sarah found herself in Commander Reeves' office again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of the tense confrontation of their first meeting, this felt like a conversation between professionals who respected each other. "Have you made a decision, Captain?" "Yes, sir. I'd like to accept the assignment." Reeves smiled, the first genuinely warm expression she'd seen from him. "I was hoping you'd say that. The paperwork is already in motion to transfer you to Naval Special Warfare Command. You'll retain your Air Force rank and benefits, but you'll be working exclusively with SEAL teams. What about aircraft assignment?
You'll have dedicated access to 2 F-22s, with full maintenance support and weapons authorization for whatever missions arise.
It's a pilot's dream assignment, Captain.
As Sarah left Reeves' office, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. 6 months ago, she'd been just another fighter pilot in a regular squadron, flying routine missions and dreaming of something more challenging. Now she was about to become one of the few pilots in the world authorized to provide close air support for America's most elite warriors. That evening, the celebration at the base club was unlike anything Sarah had experienced in her military career. The SEALs had a way of celebrating that was uniquely their own, intense camaraderie mixed with the dark humor that came from facing death on a regular basis.
Speech! Speech! Rodriguez called out as the evening wound down.
Sarah found herself standing before the assembled team, trying to find words for what she was feeling. 3 weeks ago, I walked into a briefing room full of men who didn't want me there, she began.
I don't blame you for that.
I was an unknown variable in your carefully planned equation. The room was quiet, everyone listening intently. But you gave me a chance to prove myself, and, more importantly, you trusted me with the most precious thing you had, your lives and the lives of your teammates. I won't forget that trust, and I promise I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of it.
Chief Thompson raised his beer. To Phoenix. Guardian Angel and Honorary SEAL. To Phoenix, the room echoed.
As Sarah looked around the room at the faces of men who'd become more than colleagues, she realized she'd found something she'd been searching for without knowing it. Not just professional acceptance, but true belonging among warriors who understood the weight of the responsibilities they carried. Lieutenant Commander Harrison approached her as the celebration began to wind down.
So, Phoenix, ready for your next mission?
Sarah smiled, thinking about the call sign that had once defined her ability to rise from disaster. Now it represented something else entirely, her role as a guardian spirit watching over America's finest warriors from the sky above.
Always ready, Viper. Always ready.
Outside, the sounds of the base settling down for the night provided a familiar backdrop. Somewhere in the world, other operations were being planned, other threats were being identified, other warriors were preparing to risk their lives for causes larger than themselves. Captain Sarah Phoenix Martinez had found her place among them, and she was exactly where she belonged.